Good afternoon, everybody. This is Caleb here with Indiana Storm Chasing Network and Indiana Weather Online. We have our first severe thunderstorm warning of the evening here across northern Indiana. This is for Elkhart County, Indiana, until 6:15 Eastern Daylight Time. This warning is for 60-mile-per-hour winds, penny-sized hail. We have a strong microburst or downburst ongoing near Wakarusa here, getting right across State Road 3, State Road 19 as we speak here. Really strong downburst here going just on the northeast side of Wakarusa here, approaching State Road 19. This would be State Road 40 right here through town. Just on the north side of the highway is where the strongest winds are at this point in time. Severe thunderstorm warning for 60-mile-per-hour winds, penny-sized hail, so some small hail in this core as well. Being reported here within this storm. Strongest winds here associated with this thunderstorm would be right in here, right where you see those brighter colors there that I have circled there. That's where our strongest winds are at this point in time. This is moving to the east southeast and not very fast, only moving here at about 15 miles per hour or so. I guess moving east at 20 miles per hour. So pretty slow moving storm here. Towns on deck would be Baintertown, New Paris, and just south of the Goshen area. I think the strongest winds would be just south of the Goshen area, north of Napanee, coming near southwest and Foraker here would be where the strongest winds are going at this point in time. Looking around the area, I have a few other scattered showers and thunderstorms at this point in time. Notice here, kind of a cool feature on a lot of these storms here. Notice these little lines or bands that protrude out away from a lot of these thunderstorms here in the state of Indiana here today. These are called outflow boundaries. We have a setup in the atmosphere that is favorable for microbursts today. Microbursts are really intense downbursts in a thunderstorm. We have some dry air aloft. Some dry air gets adjusted into the thunderstorm, and that dry air causes some of the rain to evaporate in the middle parts of the cloud. And as that air evaporates, it cools. The air is very cold aloft, and as it cools, it condenses and it becomes very heavy. That heavy, wet air is then forced down to the ground very, very fast in the form of a microburst. These are very isolated, localized events, but they can be quite powerful in nature and very hard to detect. This was what's likely going on here within this storm near Wakarusa. Some dry air likely got adjusted aloft. That has caused that air to condense, become really dense, and fall to the ground as a microburst here at about 60 miles per hour or so. Right now, the strongest winds are approaching southwest, State Road 119, right along for State Road 119 at right now, coming near Foraker here. So if you know anybody in this area here, really in this circle here, in this zone right in here would be where the strongest winds are at this point in time. Right, we see the brightest greens here be State Road 7, State Road 42, State Road 119 near southwest. That's where our strongest winds are at this point in time, right near 60 miles per hour or so here within this thunderstorm. For the rest of the evening, though, not looking to be too bad. Just a few isolated showers and thunderstorms here. But we look to have the same environment here again tomorrow. So tomorrow, mid-afternoon, expect these scattered showers and thunderstorms to pop up with also a slight risk for damaging winds. An isolated strong storm can't be ruled out tomorrow anywhere in the state of Indiana, but primarily northern Indiana is where we have the greatest risk here for thunderstorms. Something really cool here I'm going to do. If I hit play here, look at this line that protrudes all up and down ahead of these storms here. That's an outflow boundary. That's our outflow from previous storms that have produced microbursts. The burst of winds come down to the ground, they spread out in all directions, and they can produce what we call outflow boundaries. And outflow boundaries at the surface act as mini cold fronts. On the backside of these outflow boundaries, you can see temperatures cool down by a few degrees, which will be a relief to a lot of us if you're lucky enough to find yourself in one of these outflow boundaries. But they can also act as mini cold fronts at the surface as well, and they can actually spark off new showers and thunderstorms out ahead of that as they act as a source of lift to get thunderstorms up and going in the atmosphere. That's what outflow boundaries do. Which this thunderstorm that was severe warned is actually a byproduct of an outflow boundary earlier this afternoon. It fired off and it's now producing its own outflow boundary that may initiate more showers and thunderstorms thereof as a result. Very strong winds here just due east of Wakarusa, approaching State Road 119 right now. 60-mile-per-hour winds, likely in this narrow zone right in here, just to the southwest of southwest. Kind of ironic there, but that's where our strongest winds are right now. If I put in a couple road names here, we have State Road 19 or Napanee Street here in Wakarusa, and then you go up north to County Road 40 here, or State Road 40, right, is where the strongest winds are at this point in time. County Road 40 and 42 here is where the strongest winds are. So really, 4 square miles is really what we're looking at here for this microburst. Microbursts are relatively small. They're very isolated. Sometimes they can be greater than 2.5 miles, and sometimes they can be smaller than 2.5 miles. But in this case, about 4 miles squared is what we're looking at here for this downburst, as it's going to be moving towards the 4-acre area, State Road 1, or yeah, near the 142 area as well. These are county roads here. Here in Elkhart County, I have to remember how they label their road network up in here. And a nice outflow boundary. So some gusty winds could be coming into the Benton area that are not severe at this moment, but could see winds pick up perhaps 10 to 15 miles per hour in the Benton area. This is well out ahead of our main gust front near Wakarusa, our microburst here. What we're likely going to see here is that these winds are at their most intense point right now. Typically, microbursts are short-lived. Once you see that microburst takes place, your storm is entering stage 3, which is the dissipation stage. Thunderstorms generally have 3 stages associated with them. You have the development stage. Stage 1, that's your puffy cumulus clouds that you see growing ever taller when you look out your window. Stage 2 is its mature stage. That's what we're in right now, when you have heavy rain, lightning, gusty winds, a microburst like we're seeing here, and some small hail. That's when your lightning, your wind, all your good stuff is going on in stage 2. Stage 3 is your dissipation stage. That's when it becomes outflow dominant. Something that we have today, or a lack of, is wind shear. We don't have a lot of wind shear today. Wind shear is very important for severe thunderstorms or organized thunderstorms, because what it does, it tilts the updraft. You need your updraft tilted for severe thunderstorms, because that allows the storm to continue sucking in warm, moist air while its exhaust system, your downdraft, is behind the storm. So you have rain-cooled air, stable air going away from the storm while it's simultaneously ingesting warm, unstable air. That is what allows organized thunderstorms to persist for long periods of time. We don't have that today. Our updrafts are vertical. They're straight up and down. So what ends up happening is when you have these microbursts take place, your downdraft comes down, but it also cuts off the updraft. So what ends up happening is your updraft of the storm is no longer able to ingest warm, unstable air. It's choking on the air that's already been cooled within its updraft, so within the downdraft of the storm. So that's what we call outflow dominant. It ends up choking, or a self-destruct button built in within the storm scenarios, kind of how I like to say it. And it ends up choking itself out. So that's what we're likely going to see here soon, but we could have some additional showers and thunderstorms, though. Entirely possible to spark off its outflow boundary, that gust front that it has generated. So Melody's in here from Goshen. Hello. You're in a severe thunderstorm warning, but the strongest winds are just to your south, just southeast of Wakarusa. And actually, they're not quite as strong as what they once were, which was a theory of kind of what is going on here with a microburst. As you press play here, you can see that bright green bubble get really bright all of a sudden, and then it gets kind of dim. That's a microburst. They come down really intense, and then they kind of disperse. They fan out, and that's about it. Unlike a straight line wind event where you have a squall line coming through, where you have a continuation of straight line winds that progress over a really large area, microbursts, they are an intense downburst. That's really what it is a downburst. They come down, they do their thing, and then they kind of lighten up a little bit. The cloud kind of dissipates on itself, and they begin to deteriorate. Gary, Indiana says it's raining and the sunshine is out. Yeah, I got a few sprinkles in the area. Got a little sprinkle right in here. As you press play, you had a nice little shower come through. This is a perfect example of thunderstorm stages. Stage 1, the developing stage, your towering cumulus. Stage 2, which happened right in here just before it got to Gary. You have all your precipitation, and your dissipation stage. Stage 3, where you have some upper level clouds and some light precipitation. So that is what's going on there. It's a dying shower or dying thunderstorm there. Not the case over here in Elkhart County. Severe thunderstorm warning for another 20 minutes here. Hopefully we're allowed to see this get canceled early if our storm weakens here a little bit. But you notice here off to the south, have some newer storms developing near Plymouth. Plymouth already had a strong thunderstorm earlier this afternoon. More developing right along US 31 and US 30 here, right at the interchange there at Plymouth. This is all thanks to an outflow boundary put off by other storms that were in the area. Going back to what I said earlier, outflow boundaries act like mini cold fronts. They can also produce more showers and thunderstorms off of those. But the main risk for storms here today probably be before 11 p.m. Once you lose the sun, your daytime heating, we don't really have a cold front in the area to really spark storms overnight tonight. These are solely being fueled by daytime heating, our sun warming the atmosphere, causing that air to rise. As that air rises, it cools. We have some cold air aloft. It cools, it condenses in the clouds, giving us our thunderstorms here today. But we also have very high moisture profiles today. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. You walk out the door, you can feel the moisture in the air. So torrential rainfall is also a hazard here within these storms, and that's also helping the formation of microbursts or heavy downbursts within these thunderstorms as well. So cold air is very dense, it's heavy, and as it condenses and cools, it wants to fall to the ground and sink very rapidly. And that's what is going on here today in a lot of our area thunderstorms. Have some isolated reports of some trees down in northern Indiana, and also a few isolated power outages as well being reported across. Very localized in nature, nothing widespread. Again, these events are only just a few miles wide in diameter. This one here kind of fanning out here a little bit, but you notice our bright greens that we had up here closer to Wakarusa have broadened out a little bit. So this storm is perhaps weakening here a little bit in terms of damaging wind potential. We are on the downtrend here. Very, very typical of what you see in a microburst. They're short-lived, but they can pack a punch. Those who are living under that 4 mile radius there, 4 miles squared, probably got quite a strong wind gust there, perhaps 60 miles an hour. So wouldn't be surprised to see a few damage reports in there just to the east or north side of Wakarusa as this microburst occurred. But thankfully, microbursts are pretty short-lived. So that's some good news about microbursts, but not to be treated lightly, though. From personal experiences, they can produce very strong winds, sometimes 80-plus miles an hour. And sometimes, unfortunately, due to their small size, this one here was a little bit larger, which allowed us to see it on radar. But a lot of times they go unnoticed until we see damage reports come in after the fact. We can see the outflow boundaries that these storms microbursts produce, but sometimes microbursts are just so small and so isolated that unfortunately we're just not able to see them on radar until after we see damage reports come in or we see the outflow boundary as a result of a microburst occurring or that have occurred. So another reason to treat these storms seriously on summer afternoons when thunder roars, go indoors. Because you never know what'll be lying in the rain. Sometimes you get an ordinary thunderstorm that is great to have the windows open, hear the rumble of thunder and heavy rain, and other times you can get a really intense downburst in the core. Very typical in the summer months here across Indiana. It's hot, it's humid. As these storms begin to collapse on each other, they can send a rush of cold, rain-cooled air down to the ground that can produce some very strong to severe winds. Midnight Wolf says, I was in Logansport earlier and roads were flooding in a few minutes. Yeah, that's another result of very heavy rainfall today. We look at something that's called PWAT, which is precipitable water availability in the atmosphere. And really what that is, it's a measurement of the water holding capacity that we have here today. And across the state, we're about 90% of average plus. So we have a lot of moisture in the air today. Very, very moist, very humid. Today is the kind of air mass that you can cut with a knife. You walk outside, it hits you right in the face. Just very thick, very juicy atmosphere here today, thanks to how much moisture we have in the air. A little bit of relief coming mid to late week. Have a weak frontal system that'll be moving through. That should hopefully help, especially with the heat index values, bring them maybe perhaps below 100 degrees by late weekend. But if you're in southern Indiana, it's a little more uncertain on how much this frontal boundary is going to help you guys out across southern Indiana here later this week, depending on how far south it goes. But northern Indiana, today's likely the last day we're going to see excessive heat warnings up here, at least for a few days. There's a chance we could warm up next week again, but looks like we're going to have a little bit of a break here, especially north of I-70 and I-74 here over the next few days. So some good news for our friends across northern Indiana. Melody said we heard hail hitting off our roof earlier before we had an extreme downpour. Yeah, small hail today. The good news is hail is not really a big hazard today. We have lots of instability needed for hail production, but because our temperatures are so warm, so high in the atmosphere, any hailstones that form in the storm likely melt or really shrink before they hit the ground. So let's say you have quarter-size hail at 10,000 feet. But as that small hailstone falls, it runs into really warm, humid air, and that melts the hailstone a little bit before it reaches the ground. So you may have quarters at 10,000 feet, but at the surface, it may be falling as penny size hail or perhaps smaller. So we do have some good news today in terms of hail. The biggest risk today is our downburst in the form of microbursts, and that's really going to be a hazard here throughout the entire week. Um, with the greatest confidence right now in northern Indiana, but really anywhere in Indiana, has the potential for microbursts here, not only today, but also the next 3 to 5 days as well. So just kind of stuck in the same pattern where we have these heat of the day thunderstorms pop up. Sometimes you can get clusters of storms if they fire off outflow boundaries or stuff like that, to where you can get little Boeing segments in there as well. But widespread severe weather isn't expected right now, which is good news. We don't have all the ingredients needed for a widespread severe weather event. We like to talk in terms of ingredients slim. We need shear, which is our wind shear, both in speed and direction with height. And we need lift, which could be a cold front, in this case, outflow boundaries. Right in here, that's our source of lift here today, outside of the sun, daytime heating. So we have lift here today. We have instability. We have more than enough instability here today, actually double the amount of instability needed for severe weather today. But because we don't have wind shear, it's really limiting our severe weather potential today and really limiting it to mainly downburst today, microburst today, because we don't have a wind shear component today. So that's good news. But if our winds were to increase aloft today, we'd be having maybe a different story here today. But because we're in a pattern where there's no cold front, there's no upper level support in terms of winds, it's just the pop up garden variety today with a few that could be strong to severe with microbursts. So Stormlord says he's listening to the stream and playing the Wii Sports at the same time. There you go. Sounds like a good combination right there. As long as you're not in the path of the severe thunderstorm warning, keep doing what you're doing. That's funny. Right now, just one severe thunderstorm warning here in the state of Indiana for Elkhart County. Goes for another 13 minutes here. Did trim it back here a little bit. Still some gusty winds, perhaps right in this zone here, just to the north of Napanee. Napanee, you're not included in the warning box. You're kind of right on the edge. So I guess most of town is in the warning box, but your strongest winds are just on the north side of town, just to the east of Locke. There is where we're looking at in terms of gusty winds. You're gonna have to watch these cores though. These thunderstorms just to the southeast in Napanee near Bremen just popped up in the last 10 minutes off of this outflow boundary. So we could get a microburst in there. Definitely not ruling that out. I don't see one on radar yet, but they often form very, very quickly. And by the time I see it on radar, a lot of times those microbursts are already occurring. Looking around the state here, mainly just garden variety thunderstorms across southern Indiana. Whoa, it just kept going there. Southern Indiana, just garden variety thunderstorms. Right now, no severe weather is expected across Anderson and points southward today. Could have some stronger storms tomorrow for Indianapolis North once again, but damaging winds is the main risk there. Mainly through microbursts or intense downbursts is really what we're looking at here tomorrow. Ingredients that we have tomorrow, we have a lot of instability like we have today. We have a lot of moisture like we have here today, but we also have a sense of lift, which would be kind of a surface boundary moving through the area, as well as daytime heating from the sun. So we have we have lift, moisture, and instability, but what we don't have a lot of tomorrow is wind shear. So that's going to limit a lot of our severe weather potential, is because we don't have a lot of wind shear tomorrow, and that goes anywhere in the state. But probably the best area for a strong to severe storm over the next couple of days will be Indianapolis and north, just closer to that source of lift. That's really all it is. Very similar ingredients exist across the entire state. We're just closer to the source, the ignition point, the ignition source for these storms across northern Indiana. So that's probably the main reason why we have a better chance for a stronger storm up there versus south of Indianapolis. But garden variety thunderstorms anywhere in the state over the next few days. We're just going to see these pop ups mid afternoon, and then by about evening time, we'll see them start to go away. And then by midnight, there won't be very many around. So if you're driving down the road, this is a really good environment to see lightning. Um, a lot of people like to call it heat lightning, though heat lightning doesn't really exist. Really, what you're looking at is just a distant thunderstorm. Thunderstorm could be 50 plus miles away, but you can see the lightning at the top of the clouds here at night. This is one of those setups. Here in the evening time, after the sun goes down, if you're out driving or on your front porch and you see lightning in the distance, um, it's a really good environment to see those cloud tops really far away. Light travels exceptionally far at night, especially when you have cloud tops, 20, 15,000 feet plus. You can see that light travel quite a bit away. So sometimes people in Fort Wayne, Indiana can see lightning down by Indianapolis or even further south. So it's amazing on how far away you can see lightning, but you won't hear the thunder because it's too far away. We got quite a few of you guys in here joining us. Great to see you guys in here. We got Corey in here. We got Connie in here. Looks like Hannah's in here. Corey's in here. Barbara's in here. Great to see you guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Rain amounts. I see a question in here about how much rain we're going to get. Rain amounts will be very sporadic. These are one of those forecasts where we can do a general area of up to an inch throughout the entire state. But here's the thing. The setup that we have here means pop-up variety thunderstorms, which also means you may be dry, but you go 2 miles up the road and they have 1.5 inches of rain because they just happen to get underneath one of these very heavy thunderstorms with slow storm movements. That's really the setup that we have here today. But some places may see 1 inch of rain if you're lucky enough to get underneath one of the thunderstorms to help cool the air down, while other places will get nothing. That's really the name of the game here. You may be looking at your weather app or forecast and it says 60% chance of rain. During this setup, 60% chance of rain or whatever the number says doesn't really mean widespread rain out. Not like rain events that we get in the spring where you see high percentages of rain, you think, oh, it's going to rain all day. Not the case here today or this week. It means kind of like what we see on radar. Scattered showers and thunderstorms popping up here across the state where it may rain for 10 to 15 minutes and then it'll be done. That's kind of what we're looking at here today. Yeah, thanks for that, Lisa. Ryan, Joel, and Drew, and they all do a terrific work for, I assume you mean Michigan Storm Chasers up there. They do great work for the state of Michigan, and we're doing the same here in Indiana. So we're part of the same company there. Yeah. Yeah. After the warning goes away, Corey, I might be able to do that. And asked any other severe weather chances here this week. Yeah, it's possible, but it's going to be very similar today, very sporadic in nature. We have all the ingredients in place to support severe weather across the state of Indiana, except one. And that one limiting factor is a big one. We don't have wind shear this week. Wind shear is really important if you want organized thunderstorms, organized convection, whether it's no matter the hazard, whether it's supporting hail, tornadoes, straight line wind, you need that wind shear. And that's something we just don't have here this week, or at least it's not trending to be the case. And that's going to limit on our severity of our storms. And probably the biggest risk here this week, no matter where you live in Indiana, is going to be microbursts. We have a lot of moisture, a lot of instability, and we have some dry air in the mid levels of the atmosphere that can get into these storms, that can create some of the water drops or raindrops in the mid levels of the cloud to evaporate. As it evaporates, that water condenses, that water vapor cools, it rapidly condenses, and it becomes very heavy. That heavy air is then sinks rapidly to the ground in the form of a downburst or microburst. And sometimes at such a velocity, winds can exceed 80 miles an hour at the surface over a small area, very localized area. And unfortunately, just because of their small size, radar has a very hard time at picking up on microbursts until the storm report comes in or an outflow boundary is seen on radar, or it just happens to be large enough to where radar can catch it. like this severe thunderstorm warning us here. We were able to catch this downburst, or at least the radar operators at the National Weather Service in Northern Indiana, who is actually just right down the road from this severe thunderstorm warning here in North Webster. So very, very good look at the storm here too. Our radar beam angle is very low, only a few thousand feet off the ground. So we're getting a very nice cross section here of what is actually going on here at the surface. My guess is they're going to let the severe thunderstorm warning expire. They may put a special weather statement on it, depending on the confidence of the National Weather Service. But right now, it looks like it has fallen below severe criteria. If you hit play here, you can see the strong winds that we had here near Wakarusa. And then you can see those bright colors fade away as the storm moves off to the south and southeast. And that's very typical with microbursts. They're very short-lived, but they can be very intense during those few moments of existence. And they can cause significant damage for those who are unlucky enough to be underneath. And but something to watch here, though, all these little lines that you see on the screen here. We have a nice long one here. And then if I switch to Indianapolis's radar, have a nice couple different boundaries here. We've got one here, one here, one here. There's just so many of them today. One here, one here. These are all outflow boundaries, which are remnants or byproducts of microbursts that have occurred in other area showers and thunderstorms. And these can act as mini cold fronts, and they can spark other showers and thunderstorms here later this evening. They act as mini cold fronts. So those of you who have one go over, the wind may pick up by 10 to 15 miles an hour, and you may feel a short-lived drop in humidity as that outflow boundary goes over. It feels really nice to have one of these go over if you're lucky enough to have one of these go over, but the effects are only temporary. It doesn't take very long for the sun to reheat the atmosphere and for the air to feel tropical again, but that 10 to 15 minute break or 20-minute break feels fantastic if you're lucky enough to get underneath one of these outflow boundaries. So we'll stay on here until this warning expires here. But really for the remainder of the night here, isolated showers and thunderstorms. A few of them could be strong to severe. Damaging winds is the main hazard through microbursts. Intense downbursts as you get some evaporative cooling going on at the mid-levels of the cloud. Dry air gets in, rain evaporates. It's actually called adiabatic cooling. And those of you in HVAC, that may ring a bell. Adiabatic cooling is used in HVAC a lot for heating and cooling systems in your home. It's the same principle used in those systems as it is in the atmosphere. It's actually what it was based on. And this is just a much larger scale. So think of it as Mother Nature's air conditioning system on steroids when you have a microburst. So that is adiabatic cooling at an extreme level, and that is bringing that rain-cooled, dense air down to the ground at high speeds. So this warning was allowed to expire near Napanee, so that's some good news. So we have no severe thunderstorm warnings in the state of Indiana at this time. We do have one special weather statement I'll go ahead and mention here before we hop off. This was issued by the National Weather Service in Indianapolis. Winds of 40 miles an hour and pea-sized hail. So strong thunderstorm here. If you're north of Rockville, near the Marshall area, just southeast of Crawfordsville, a strong thunderstorm there. Areas across southern Indiana here before we hop off. Another outflow boundary here. You're going to see a lot of these here this week. If you have a radar on your phone, you're going to see a lot of these little lines. So if you're wondering what they are, they're outflow boundaries. A storm produced a boundary or a downdraft or a gust front. And a lot of times these will live a lot longer than the storms do. You'll see these outflow boundaries persist even after the storms have dissipated. For example, these storms here near Evansville are dying out, but the outflow boundary remains. So that can spark additional showers and thunderstorms here this evening. So the severe weather risk is low here tonight, but an isolated strong to severe storm can't be ruled out, mainly in the form of a microburst or downburst or two. So with that being said, we'll probably go ahead and hop off here. We'll be watching radar here behind the scenes, but if we see any other storms get an attitude, we'll post about them on the page and come back on and cover those if they do happen to be warned here today. But severe weather looks to be very sporadic in nature and very short-lived in nature. Microbursts typically have a lifespan of only just about 5 to 10 minutes or less. They're very short-lived, but they can pack a punch if you happen to find yourself underneath the one. So again, thunder roars, go indoors, have a safe evening, and we'll see you next time